The galaxy had always viewed humanity as a young species. They were newcomers to the stars, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 3 centuries ago. The older races watched them with mild curiosity, the way an adult might watch a child learning to walk. The collective council of 12 ancient species considered humans to be harmless settlers, more interested in building farms and cities than in conquest. They were wrong. The empire had existed for 40,000 years. Their scales shimmered like liquid metal, and their eyes held the cold calculation of predators who had never known defeat. They controlled over 800 star systems, and their military doctrine was simple: eliminate potential threats before they grew strong enough to matter. When their scouts discovered a small human colony on the green world called New Eden, they saw an opportunity. New Eden was home to 2.3 million people. It was a peaceful world of farmers, teachers, scientists, and children. The colony had only a small defense fleet of 20 ships, barely enough to protect against pirates. They arrived with 200 warships on what the humans would later call the Day of Ashes. Admiral Al stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue-green planet on his. His orders were clear: no survivors, no witnesses. The humans were expanding too quickly, and the Empire wanted to send a message to any species considering resistance. He gave the command without hesitation. The bombardment lasted 6 hours. Plasma fire rained down from orbit, turning cities into craters and forests into ash. The 20 human defense ships fought with desperate courage, but they were destroyed in the first 30 minutes. Emergency broadcasts went out across every frequency, screaming for help that would never arrive in time. By the time the fleet departed, New Eden was a dead world. Not a single structure remained standing. Not a single human remained alive. The distress signals reached Earth 4 days later. President read the reports in silence. Around her, the Joint Chiefs of Staff waited for her response. The images were impossible to comprehend. A thriving colony reduced to radioactive wasteland. Satellite footage showed the before and after. Green continents turned black. Blue oceans boiled away. 2.3 million voices silenced forever. Who did this? Her voice was steady, but those who knew her could see the fire building behind her eyes. The Empire, Madam President. They've claimed responsibility. They're calling it a preventive action against human expansion. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Earth had known many wars throughout its history. Humanity had fought itself countless times, but they had always rebuilt. They had always survived. This attack was different. This was not a war between nations. This was an alien empire trying to exterminate them like insects. How many ships do we have? Admiral stepped forward. The United Earth Navy currently maintains 500,000 combat-ready warships across all fleets. Another 200,000 are in reserve or under construction. They had based their assessment of humanity on the small colonial defense forces they had observed. They had not bothered to investigate Earth itself. They had not learned about the centuries of conflict that had forged humanity into warriors. They had not discovered the massive shipyards hidden in asteroid belts or the weapons research facilities buried deep beneath planetary surfaces. Humanity had learned long ago to appear weak while building strength in secret. President turned back to face her military commanders. Deploy everything. I want every warship we have moving towards space within 48 hours. And Admiral, I want you to understand something clearly. We are not going there to negotiate. We are not going to accept their surrender. Every military installation will be destroyed. Every warship will be reduced to dust. They wanted to teach us fear. Instead, they have awakened something they cannot imagine. The order went out across human space. From Earth to Mars, from the mining stations of Jupiter to the research facilities of Alpha, humanity mobilized for total war. Shipyards that had been producing cargo vessels switched to weapons manufacturing. Civilians volunteered by the millions. Within 36 hours, the largest fleet in galactic history was assembled and ready. The collective council received reports of the human mobilization with disbelief. Their observers counted the ships and recounted them, certain there must be an error. They had assumed humanity possessed perhaps 50,000 military vessels. The actual number was 10 times that estimate. More troubling were the readings from the human weapon systems. Their ships carried antimatter torpedoes, quantum disruption cannons, and something the Council scientists could not identify at all. Ambassador Eth of the Republic attempted to contact President. Honored leader of humanity, we urge you to reconsider this action. The Empire is powerful. They have destroyed civilizations older than your species. Perhaps negotiation. Ambassador, the President interrupted, your council watched as 2.3 million of my people were murdered. You did nothing. You said nothing. You are not in a position to offer advice. Stay out of our way or you will share their fate. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, 11 species suddenly realized that humanity was not the harmless newcomer they had believed. Something ancient and dangerous lived within these strange beings from the third planet of Sol. Something that had been sleeping and was now fully awake. Admiral Al received word of the approaching human fleet while celebrating his victory. At first he laughed. Then the scouts sent detailed reports. 500,000 warships, moving in perfect formation, traveling at speeds the engines could not match. They would reach the Empire's border in 72 hours. The Emperor called an emergency session. For the first time fear entered the command structure. They had 600 warships available for immediate defense, with another 3,000 that could be mobilized within a week. Against 500,000 human vessels, these numbers meant nothing. How is this possible? The Emperor demanded. Our intelligence indicated they had no significant military presence. His intelligence chief had no answer. They had made assumptions based on incomplete data. They had judged humanity by its peaceful colonies while ignoring its history. They had not studied the two world wars, the nuclear standoffs, the endless conflicts that had shaped human civilization. They had not understood that peace for humans was merely the pause between storms. The human fleet crossed into space precisely on schedule. Admiral commanded from the flagship Remembrance, named for the dead of New Eden. The first defense station detected them and transmitted a warning to surrender. Its response was a salvo of antimatter torpedoes that erased the station from existence. The first major engagement occurred at the fortress world of. They had gathered 200 warships and believed their orbital defense platforms would provide sufficient protection. The battle lasted 47 minutes. Human ships attacked from multiple dimensions simultaneously, using technologies they had never encountered. Their shields were useless. Their weapons could not track targets moving at impossible speeds. By the end, every vessel was destroyed, and the defense platforms had been reduced to debris. News of the defeat spread through the Empire like wildfire. Panic began in the outer colonies. Military officers who had spent their careers believing in supremacy now faced the reality of absolute defeat. Some tried to flee. There was nowhere to run. The human fleet did not stop to celebrate or rest. They moved from system to system with mechanical precision. Every military base was destroyed. Every warship was hunted down. The order had been specific. No military asset would survive. Civilian populations were left untouched, but anything capable of fighting was eliminated without mercy. Admiral Al made his last stand at the fortress of Outer Reach. He gathered the remains of his fleet, 400 vessels crewed by soldiers who knew they would not survive the day. When the human ships appeared, he broadcasted a challenge. Humans, I am Al, the one who burned your colony. Face me in single combat if you have the courage. Admiral considered the request. Then he ordered his fleet to maintain formation. You do not deserve the honor of personal combat. You killed children and farmers. You are not a warrior. You are a murderer, and murderers do not choose how they die. The human fleet opened fire. Al's flagship was hit by 17 antimatter torpedoes simultaneously. He had time for one final thought before the explosion. They had made a terrible mistake. The war lasted 6 weeks. In that time, humanity destroyed over 12,000 warships and eliminated every military installation in the Empire. The Emperor was captured alive, as ordered. He was brought before President in chains. "Your empire tried to exterminate us," she told him. "You thought we were weak because we chose peace. You were wrong. We chose peace because we know what we are capable of when we choose war. Your military is gone. Your empire will exist only as long as we permit it. And every year on the anniversary of New Eden, your people will remember what happens when you harm humanity." The collective council watched these events with growing terror. The peaceful, harmless humans had revealed themselves as the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Their technology was centuries ahead of what they had displayed. Their military power was beyond anything the Council could match. And worst of all, they had shown that they would not stop until their enemies were completely defeated. Ambassador Eth requested a meeting with President. This time, he came with offerings of alliance and trade agreements. He came with promises of eternal friendship and cooperation. The president accepted his gifts politely, but everyone in the room understood the truth. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted forever. Humanity was no longer the young species learning to walk. They were the new dominant force among the stars, and any species considering aggression against them would remember New Eden. They would remember the 500,000 warships that had appeared without warning. They would remember the complete and utter destruction of the military. In the years that followed, human colonies spread across the galaxy without interference. No empire challenged them. No species threatened their borders. The memory of what had happened was enough. On the burned surface of New Eden, humanity built a memorial, a single tower of black stone reaching toward the stars. On it were carved the names of every person who had died that day. At its base was a simple inscription: "We remember, we avenge, we never forget." And deep in space, aboard the remembrance, Admiral kept a small jar of ash from New Eden on his desk, a reminder of why they had fought, a reminder of what humanity would do to protect its own, a reminder that in the cold darkness between stars, humanity had found its true nature. They were survivors, they were warriors, and they would never be victims again. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would echo through the ages. Do not wake the sleeping giant. Do not harm its children. Do not mistake kindness for weakness. Because when humanity goes to war, there is no force in the universe that can stand against them.